Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name, of course, is Cesar Chris, and today we're talking about WildStar. Specifically, we're going to be talking a lot about the new player experience when you first get into WildStar. There's a few reasons for this, namely I haven't actually made a new character in a really long time, and I haven't yet experienced their new tutorial system, which I think adds a fair bit to the game, or at least that's what I've heard from other people. It's also a very important thing to discuss because a first experience for players coming into the game really tells a lot about if the player is going to stay with the game and if they're going to engage in the leveling process and really stick with it for the long haul. So looking at the first thing we have here, we have a choice between a novice or veteran player. This is already a great start because it lets people who have done characters before and just want to make a quick alt go to the veteran route and get out of the way right away. And it lets people who haven't played the game before, who don't know anything about the game, get more detail, and it lets that choice be made right away, which is great instead of just skipping things later on. And then we're presented with a very nice looking screen where we choose our faction as well as our gender. So it's very nice because it very much portrays the Dominion as evil and as the Exiles as more innocent, nice people just based on the colors. I mean, assuming you associate red with evil, which most people do. We can look at the genders, and we can put our mouse over top of each of the different races and see which classes these different races can play, which is really nice too, because it gives us a good sort of idea of what they're able to do, and it does give us a bit of an explanation of what the race is about, what the faction is about. The next step for us is choosing from the 6 different classes. This page is a lot better than when I first started the game, and I love it. It shows you what the class is going to be able to do, which is just great. I think the video is really good, shows you the skills, shows you the combat, because that's something that really sucks when you get, 20 levels in and you're like, wow, this is not exactly at all how I thought the class would play. But really interestingly is it shows what roles the class can play at the top here. It shows healer and then ranged. For the warrior, it showed tank and melee combat, which is really good because and then for engineer here, sorry, it shows tank and ranged again. It gives people a very clear idea of what the class is going to do, and it doesn't shy away from the fact that this game has the Holy Trinity, and it's going to make use of it. Now, if we look at the bottom here, we actually also get to go through the different types of armor we're going to wear, which is really cool too. It really sucks if you make a character and you have this vision for them, but they're never going to have that armor to accomplish that vision, so you may as well know right away what kind of style of weapons and gear they're going to be getting. That way you can really get invested from the very start and know what your end goal is going to be. So we now get to select our path. This page is pretty good too. It's got some video when you click on one of them that you want to try. I think the paths are still one of the most unique features for all of WildStar. The ability to choose what kind of side quests you want, even though it's just from 4 different subtopics, is something that's not really been tackled before. And it's a whole level of customization that a lot of games don't even dive into. Now, do I think that they could add a bit more to it? Yeah, I think maybe some more perks and some more advancement with the path system would help the game a lot and really make it interesting in terms of exploration, because that's something we talked about in our previous video, how to save WildStar, is we need to focus on what the game does really well. And I think everyone can agree that the exploration and the customization of the game and your character is something that they just nail. And speaking of customization, we're going to be diving right into character customization here. The race I chose, which I didn't mention before, is the Groundhog. I've not ever made a Groundhog, so I kind of wanted to do it in this video just to have one for myself to play. And then the very classic style is to do a warrior because they're so big and made of rock, and they just make sense to play together. And it's a very traditional WildStar feeling character, which I'm very excited to play. So you get to choose your face, which is very awesome, and you get to customize pretty much everything you want, but there's some very specific things I want to talk about. One of my favorite parts, and some games actually don't have this, and it doesn't seem like a big issue, but I really do enjoy the randomize all button because that really lets you sort of create a random person or just have a person given to you, kind of like the game's giving birth to your own character or whatever. And it's nice in that sense if you want a completely random feeling character for this game. It's also nice, I guess, if you're in a rush or just someone who doesn't like the fuss around. And then if you do like the fuss around, there's a ton of options for you too. You get to change hairstyles, obviously, different very unique features that only WildStar characters have, such as like the little rocks I have for my facial hair, I guess, but they're rocks because I'm made out of rocks, so that would make sense. And then you get to change the color of it and stuff like that, which is also very fun. Another really great thing is it does have preferred presets that you can have as well for the characters, which is a nice addition. And at any point, if I haven't mentioned this already, is that you can go back and forth through the character creation process with those little arrows on the side, either at the bottom left or the bottom right. So you can see here I'm just changing the color of the rocks, and it's a very nice effect to be able to do that. We have our different body types. I mean, they're all pretty large on this race, but I'm going to go for the biggest and fattest one you can have, because that's what I like my warriors to be, just a big tank. And then you can finally change the color of the rock that you are, which actually does change a lot about how your character looks. And I think most of the characters in this game do let you to change either the fur color, the skin color a fair bit, so their rock color, the liquid inside of you. Like there's a lot of different choices here. And then finally we get to make our name, which is now first name and last name. If you haven't been on in a while, you're probably gonna have to make a last name for your character. Just with all the server merging and stuff like that, it's what they did sort of so that people could keep their first name. And it's not a bad thing to have. And plus you get to rename your character for free.
The exiles, driven off their planets by the Dominion, have been desperately searching for a new homeworld while being relentlessly hunted across the stars. But in their darkest hour, they discovered the planet Nexus, the fabled homeworld of the Eldin who disappeared from the galaxy long ago. Exhausted, but full of hope, the exiles prepared their ancient starships for one final journey to Nexus. And that is where their true adventure begins.
Take a look at her, kid. She's beautiful, ain't she? That's our new home, Nexus. My name's Dorian Walker. Yeah, that Dorian Walker. The one who discovered this place. The exiles need your help, kid. Nexus may be exciting, but it's full of mystery, too. And that's where you come in. This simulation's designed to get you ready for your big adventure before you wake up from cryo and head planetside. I'll tag along to show you the ropes. Ready? Let's have some fun.
All right, so we have those beautiful cinematics that give us a lot more information about what WildStar is a game, and gives you really the feeling of exploring a new planet and the wonder that's associated with that, which is a very great way for new players to get introduced to the new planet. And a lot, like the first of those cinematics was part of the original game, or at least was in the game a bit more at the start. But the second one of those with Dorian Walker there is completely new from what I understand. And that one is the one explaining that we're going to be going into a simulation now, and you're just going to be experiencing a lot of the things you're going to see on Nexus. And that's a really cool way for new players to see sort of some of the higher level gameplay in advance. So the first thing that you can see us doing here on screen is we actually get to try a hoverboard right away, which is something that originally you wouldn't get to do until maybe like level 10 or level 15 in the game, and you'd have to buy your hoverboard, and it might not be the fastest hoverboard right away. But here you get new players who within maybe 5 minutes of starting the game get to experience one of the most fun elements of the game, which is the hoverboard, and you get to do a little race, which even when I was first playing WildStar, there was like very few instances where it was just about racing your hoverboard, and this is a really fun activity for me to do as a new player. So I very much enjoyed the ability to really get into the hoverboarding right away. I think that's a great element for them to put forward in the game.
might have found Nexus, but the Dominion thinks they own the joint. There's a fight brewing, pure and simple.
Alright, so we have another cinematic here, and what they're doing is really bridging each of the different tutorial sections with a cinematic, sort of explaining a bit more about the game. This one's leading into the combat area where we're going to learn more about how to actually fight and stuff. But importantly, in the cinematic, we learn a bit more about the Exile and Dominion, and a bit more of the war that's there, because that is one of the most important parts of WildStar, is that there is a bit of a fight between the two sides, right? Because a lot of the new MMORPGs don't have the traditional factions like WoW used to have with the Horde and Alliance, where there is that hatred between the two of them, and we get a bit more information even as we play through about our actual race and how the Dominion came and invaded our planet and how we had a big fight with them, and how there is long-standing hatred between the two people, which is really good. So what we're learning about here, we learned about fighting monsters, and now with this new thing where we have to disarm mines, we learn a bit more about telegraphs and how, you know, this red area is bad and you have to get out of it before it, you know, goes off or it's going to hit you. And then right next is what we're going to learn about is the CC and making breaking the interrupting the enemy rather. And that's a very important thing that a lot of people need to understand, especially for the first few dungeons and adventures that you get into, where, you know, you need people to be able to break the interrupt armor and break the actual interrupt bar. And it's difficult if people have never used these interrupt skills before, maybe, and just need to sort of on a whim know how to do it for the dungeon, and or have people explain it to you. But in this situation, we actually have people, or the game, tell people, you know, this is how you interrupt people. And if you do so, you're going to get a moment of opportunity that's going to give you more damage against the people. It's very clear to understand, and it gets right to the point, which is great for new players. It also makes you feel like the combat's a lot more interactive right away. I mean, obviously, it still feels like a tutorial, and it's telling you everything you need to do, but it's making it seem like things are a lot more interactive as you go along. So what I did notice is you actually do level during the tutorial, which is really cool too. You get to hear the crazy level up sounds they have, where they like curse at you and tell you how badass you are, which I think is, again, a very important part of the game and something that they should have right away. So now we're just going to dive into another cinematic here on our way to the housing area.
Hey there, Exile. Looking for your home on Nexus? Look no further. Your land is your business with the ProtoStar Modifiable Landscape Program. Build what you want, when you want, with ProtoStar.
So that's another fun cinematic that we get to see right away, and what it does is it presents the sort of fun side of WildStar, where we have the ProtoStar guys and their sort of advertisement ways of telling you about information, which is something that's very core to the style of content in WildStar and how the game's actually presented, and that's something that players get to learn about right away. And realistically talking about it, like, it was one of my favorite parts of WildStar, because you've never really had someone that's so jokingly a part of the game and like a part of every aspect of the game. Like, we eventually have a dungeon, the Ultimate Proto Games, which is all about the Proto guys, and it's very interesting how a part of the game this humorous sort of economic focused character is, but it's very good for people to understand that right away. So we do get brought to a example skyplot here, and we get to see a lot of the really cool decor that they do have and that you wouldn't unlock in the game for a long time if you were actually just doing it traditionally. So you get to see how cool a lot of the stuff is right away. And I mean, that's both good, obviously, for the game, because the decor is, once again, another part of the game that I think is exceptional and really does need to be put on display. So I'm very happy that they are doing that. That's something I do mention in my How to Save WildStar video, is that it should be about the decor and about housing. And if they really introduce players this early on, I think that's a great start. It's a great way for them to actually make a bit of money too, just on very cosmetic items. Obviously, I don't think everything for housing should be achieved through the gem store. That would be, or through the cash shop. That would be ridiculous, because you do need some incentive to actually play the game. But having some things through there is a great way for them to make a bit of income on the side. We do get to, see the different kind of music you can do, the different kind of lighting you can do, that you can scale things. It explains how you can adjust things as well, which is great. I wonder if they're going to need to update this when neighborhoods become a thing, and if they need to explain that that's a part of the housing community as well. Or maybe that's something that they'll adjust when you actually do purchase your first housing plot, and then they can explain how neighborhoods work and how that's a whole new thing that they're adding to housing, and that's going to make housing even better for WildStar. Because I really do think that the fact that they're working on housing is a great sign for the game. Because if I had to choose what content they should be working on and what content a lot of people do play WildStar for right now, housing is definitely one of the top things that people are playing. So they also go ahead and show you how to use the cash shop, go through and buy a title that they give you currency for. This might take away from some people who are super anti-cash shop, but let's be honest, if they want to make game or money with this game and keep the game running, they need people to understand how to buy stuff, that there is cool stuff that you can buy. They're not going to, force it down your throat. They just sort of say, here, this is a quick way to buy a title. And I think it's a very good thing for new players to see as well.
Nexus is chock full of mysteries to solve and relics to discover. This should give you some idea of what to expect.
All right, so the very final cinematic we have of the actual tutorial area, not the final cinematic we have, because that one is really cool, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But this one right here talks a bit more about the Elden and sort of some of the things you're going to see on WildStar and sort of some of the lore of the actual game and the central story, which is good to introduce a bit at the start here. It definitely gives you a bit more intrigue and interest into what the game and the planet has to offer for new players and what you're going to be exploring for. It gives you a bit of a tutorial on how to interact with elements that are just in the nature and in the natural places of the planet. Like we have this circuit here that you can go ahead and turn on different segments. You see that when it's not turned on, it's red. When it turns on, it's green. That seems like pretty obvious stuff, but if you're just sort of, walking around and there's a quest that asks you to sort of correctly turn on this circuit, you might not right away realize that the colors do interact with you when you're turning on the different parts of it, or how you can tell if you're doing a good job or not. And then finally, it also brings together a lot of the different combat mechanics together. At the end here, you get to face a boss that has telegraphs that can be interrupted, and it has a moment of opportunity. It doesn't do the tutorial itself is never very challenging. You never feel like you're gonna die or anything like that, which I think it's good for new players. However, the actual combat and questing in WildStar does get a bit harder than many other games do. There is times where you feel like you've bit off more than you can chew, and you do die during questing, which I think is something that it doesn't sound like a really good thing to have, but it's actually something that a lot of people miss in their current games that they're playing. There's just not that level of difficulty that I think is really important. So we're going to kill this guy, and we're going to go into the final cutscene here, which I'm just going to say is, I think, one of the most important parts of WildStar, where we sort of lead off into more of the actual game's core story.
Stars! That was a close one. You done good, champ. It's about time we brought you out of cryo. Relax for a few minutes while the ticks start the process.
Hello. You're different somehow. Special. I need your help. Nexus has many secrets. And when the time is right, I will show them to you.
You okay, Slick? There was a glitch with your extraction protocol. Something weird. I wonder... This is the departures terminal. From here, you can head down to the planet. I've got a good feeling about you, kid. Something big is on the horizon.
I absolutely love that cinematic. It really makes it very interesting for new players to find out who that voice is. It gives you sort of the mystery of Nexus as it was. I think we're going to cut it off here. We'll talk about some other parts of the game in our future videos, so feel free to sub and like. We'd love to have you guys with us. And feel free to talk about your own feelings about this new tutorial that they have. They've had it for a while, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it, if you think it's been great for the game, or what you think could be added to it. Until then, thanks for watching.